Hey everybody, welcome back to Plugin Tut, your home for handcrafted WordPress plugin tutorials and services and themes all around the WordPress space. But today we're taking a different story, and we're going to talk about podcasting and the reasons why you should podcast, benefits for your business, how to get started, that kind of thing. This is actually a video for a presentation that I'm doing for a local chamber, and I've done this talk many times for different organizations, not just small businesses, but for universities, marketing groups, that kind of thing. And I think it's a very, very important conversation to be had for anybody who's looking to grow an audience, get awareness for either their organization, their business, their product that they're selling. Podcasting is a great way to do that. I'm going to open up to some different ideas about podcasting that you might not be thinking of when you hear the word podcasting. So for those of you out in the audience, go ahead. If you're thinking about starting a podcast or you've already started a podcast, go ahead and mention that in the comments below. I'd love to know what kind of ideas you have for a podcast, what kind of business you're running, maybe even some of the challenges that you think that are out there for you in terms of getting into a podcast. I just sent out a Thumbtack group message for somebody to replace my fence. I bet there's a lot of fence people out there who are like, I could never get into podcasting. I see no benefits from it. It's too technical for me. I don't understand it. As somebody who is looking to hire somebody for a fence, I would love to have somebody out there who's talking about fence replacement, teaching me what it means to have a good quality fence, do the job right, who owns what in a property line. Plenty of information just in that small nugget of me looking for somebody to replace my fence. So if you're out there on the fence, no pun intended, about starting a podcast, hopefully this video and some of the stuff I talk about today will be super important and valuable to making that decision. Let's talk about podcasting in general. The explosive growth of podcasting it's just been tremendous, right? To see the amount of people who are not only creating podcasts for their own initiatives, but to people who are listening to podcasts for entertainment now. There is a ton of content out there for us to select from. Netflix, YouTube, HBO, Hulu, and of course now tons of podcasts on iTunes, Serial, S-Town, to name a few that are highly produced shows. Crime Town, another great one that I love listening to. These are all entertainment podcasts. And then there's plenty of people out there who are like comedians, talk show hosts, Joe Rogan, Bill Burr. These guys are, Mike Maron, these guys are interviewing celebrities and people of high accomplishments and achievements. And it's just great listening. Again, all sort of distilled down to just audio, no special effects, short of the audio special effects, but just a great entertainment value. Lots of media companies now really investing in that, which means it's going to be a lot more competitive for those of us out there who want to start our own podcast. How can we get people to listen to our podcast? Is it important to them? How do we grow these people into a strong, rich audience? If you think that podcasting is just audio, go ahead and just raise your hands out there, your virtual hands. To me, podcasting is not just about the audio. It's about the video. It's about the media that you produce around podcasting, whether it be, rich photography or, dare I even say, infographics, short video clips, Instagram stories, Snapchat. It's also about broadcasting. It's live video on YouTube. It's live video on Facebook. All of this stuff culminates into a content marketing plan, a broadcasting and awareness plan. This is all about getting the attention that maybe your organization or product deserves to fight for, right? Again, lots of stuff out there, lots of choices from people to select from. So hopefully we can create content that people want to listen to, engage with, and at the end of the day, you're either getting somebody on an email list, you're selling them a product, they're donating to your cause or fund, and or just general awareness. Maybe you just want to do it for the fun of it, because it is fun. No doubt, it is fun. Let's move on with the presentation. How many of you are blogging? How many of you are creating content on a regular basis? See, to me, you can't have podcasting without other content creation. I mean, they go together really well, like peanut butter and jelly, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. I really think that podcasting goes great and hand in hand with your content creation, your content marketing plan. Podcasting is super intimate, right? It is somebody who is listening in their earbuds on a walk, on a run, at the gym, in the car, on a commute, washing the dishes, cleaning out the yard, that kind of thing. You have somebody's, for most of the time, their complete and undivided attention because they can't listen to more than one podcast, certainly, at a time. Although I've tried it, and I've actually done a really good job with it. And maybe I'll do another video on that later on. The idea here is people who are listening to a podcast are very engaged. They're highly engaged, especially those who come back every week, month, or day, whatever your cadence is for producing a podcast. You know that the people who are listening to this, they're your best audience, which means that they're going to be your super fan. They're going to amplify your message. They're going to amplify your marketing and your brand, and hopefully they become a customer, if not a customer of yours right now, in the future, and for the time from here on out, they'll be sort of saying, hey, you should check out so-and-so. I listened to her podcast. She has a great product or service. Check her out, that kind of thing. Look, it's all about that awareness and investing in podcasting right now is going to be, it's going to pay off in the years to come, if not a year to come, the way things move so fast. I've mentioned this before, but it's all about that broadcasting opportunity. We're not just doing it on iTunes for audio. We're doing it on SoundCloud. We're doing it on Stitcher. We're doing it on Google Play. There are a host of places to put your audio files for people to access. Of course, iTunes is number one. It's all about getting that review. It's also about getting found in the iTunes store because it's the number one sort of discovery platform for podcasts right now. And Apple really hasn't invested in discovery and interaction with podcasts. I really think that you're gonna see that page turn pretty soon, where Apple will start to give us a better podcasting app, and they'll give us better discovery options. Heck, as a podcast producer myself, they don't even give us stats. They don't even give us the stats and the listening and the interaction with our content, probably because it's a huge thing to tame and sort of get us all this information. But I think once they do that, and if they do that, hopefully they do that, we're going to see the game change a little bit in terms of who's creating podcasts and what kind of investment people are putting into it. In terms of consulting with other companies and small businesses around the United States, I've never had anybody sort of tell me, hey, Matt, I don't need any more customers. I'm good. Turn the faucet off. I don't need any more money. I've heard people definitely tell me that that business is great. They have more leads than they can handle right now. But I've never heard anybody say, I never want to invest for the future. And I really see podcasting as that insurance. Again, any content creation as that insurance for future business growth. Because eventually the well will run dry, if not just sort of plateau, and getting that consistent message out there. That's why consistency is king when it comes to content creation. Having that consistent message going out there, you might not be selling and converting on it right now, but when the market changes, when there's a new president, when there's a natural disaster, when your product is just not competitive anymore and somebody else comes into the space, outselling you, outperforming you, having the messaging out there consistently will have that awareness going for you and operating for you and getting more eyeballs on your website, podcast, products, and services for the years to come. So I mentioned that consistency is king when it comes to creating content, and that is rule number one if you're going to get into this stuff, getting a consistent schedule going out. And the good thing is you set that schedule, you set that expectation to your audience. So you just have to make the decision on what kind of podcast am I going to create. Again, audio, video, live, not live, pre-recorded, multiple parts, multiple series, a playlist of sorts. You sort of determine all of that stuff before you get into it. And one of the things that is super important about this is the audience. Once the audience gets hooked, that's when you need to keep that consistency going. So if you set a weekly show, you want to keep creating so that your audience expects that weekly show, because that's how you get sort of people hooked, and they are always sort of hanging on to the next week so that they can download your show, listen to your either interview or a tutorial, whatever it might be. Plan to create awesome content And there's a whole theoretical side to this. I won't really get into it. And awesome is very subjective. It depends on what kind of personality you are, what kind of content you're creating, what kind of content your end user is expecting to listen to. So let me go back to that sort of fencing company example that I mentioned before. If a fencing company tried putting out a comedic podcast, right, it's comedy or something like that, it would probably be tough to sort of crack that nut, because there are plenty of other comedians out there who have great podcasts that I would probably listen to other than them. But again, if it was absolutely hilarious and a take on something that is so unique that somebody wants to go listen to this person who installs fences that is absolutely hilarious, that would be an amazing twist, although very difficult to really achieve that. But imagine the headlines of a comedic fence installer, right? That would be pretty amazing. The idea is you're creating this awesome content, and it's competing with the time that your customer or your audience is sort of listening to other stuff, right? Say, hey, I want to listen to Matt's podcast. I want to listen to Jessica's podcast because of this awesome value that it contains, all for the fact that you want to funnel them in to an email list. You want to get them subscribed as a dedicated audience listener. They're there every week, but week after week, day after day, whatever it is, the message is, please sign up to my email list because that is what's really going to be the metric that we use to measure not just our podcast, but all content creation, right? All content marketing should be measured, well, of course, by the leads that you get in through your contact form or the sales that you make on your e-commerce store. But the third performance factor, if not the most important one to go before all of those, is getting them on that email list, because before they can purchase and before they contact you for whatever service you might have or product, getting them on that email list to engage with them, ultimately the best thing that we want to do. Next up, I want to talk about a super scientific image. This is something that's like Harvard Business School level. You pay $250 million to go to school to get this kind of information. And it's the ultimate breakdown of your content marketing plan moving forward with podcasting and content marketing altogether. It's the peanut butter jelly sandwich, okay? It's the peanut butter jelly sandwich. The peanut butter is the content, right? It's sometimes hard to chew. If you get that organic stuff and you put it in the fridge, it's hard to really scoop out and sometimes gets really sticky in your mouth. It's just a little bit of a process. It could be kind of tiresome if you just ate peanut butter all day long, right? And at some point it gets a little plain if you're just eating peanut butter all the time, but that's your content. Peanut butter represents the blogging, the email newsletter writing, the social media posts, the podcast interviews, the video creation. It's all of that content. But what does peanut butter really like to be paired with? Jelly, right? Jelly is the products, the services, the lead generation, the sales, right? That's the stuff that when you mix the peanut butter, all of that great content with all of your great products and services, and you put them together, it's an amazing combination. All that is to say is that the peanut butter should lead to the jelly in terms of your business, right? You want people to really chew on this peanut butter and say, that's some really good quality peanut butter, and man, don't these products and services taste really sweet when this content is combined with our products and services? Nobody wants to be reading content that has nothing to do, or watching content, listening to content that has nothing to do with your products or services. It should really align, because that's going to be the best ROI for your business, okay? The best return on investment for your business. Spend all that time creating content, and don't you want to sell them that sweet jelly at the end of the day? But what is the most important piece? What holds together peanut butter and jelly? You can't just put peanut butter and jelly together, roll it up in your hands and pop it in your mouth. I guess you could, but that's not the formal way of doing things. What really holds it together is the bread. And the bread, in this case, is that email list that I was talking about before. It comes in different flavors, comes in different shapes and sizes. It all depends on really what you want to do with it. Thin slice, all these different types of breads, plain wheat, good white, whatever it might be. The bread is the email list. That's what holds it all together, because funneling all of that content into an email list, which then you will then use to communicate with your audience, connect with them, better than social media, in fact, because Facebook wants you to pay for ads. Twitter is an enormous stream of things. Instagram is getting sort of even more filtered down with their new algorithm. It's always going to be about those platforms getting you to pay money to reach that audience. They're not foolish. They know what they've built. Whereas if you get an email list going, you can email those folks at any point in the day, at any day of the week, and it'll go right into their inbox, only getting filtered if it gets labeled sort of as spam. And it's a very controlled situation. So those people who don't want to be on your email list, those people who don't want to receive emails from you, they're simply not going to subscribe, or they're going to unsubscribe, and that's okay. Creating an email list is not about sort of the numbers that you see go up, but in fact the engaged amount of people that are on that list, people who are emailing you back, communicating with you, and ultimately buying your product at the end of the day. So go ahead and eat that big, beautiful peanut butter jelly sandwich. It's going to be great for your business. If anybody tells you that you should put fluff in your peanut butter and jelly, that's just fluff. Fluff, it tastes great for a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not a consistent thing. It's not something we should always put in our peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that is sort of the spin-off marketing stuff that you see out there, and we're not going to pay attention to any of that fluff. Let's talk about why I think podcasting is the smartest move for your business, okay? Number one, there's 3 reasons. Number one, positioning, network, learning. These are the most selfish factors of creating a podcast. You are positioning yourself, hopefully, as somebody who is an industry leader in whatever content that you're talking about, somebody who really knows what you're talking about if you're creating a series of podcasts or videos, that kind of thing on a particular topic. It really puts you as that thought leader, even though I hate that term. It's a really old term from about 2-3 years ago, still kind of used today. But it really puts you in that position to say, look, I am the professional in this space. I create a podcast, multiple podcasts about WordPress. Hopefully people look at me and say, hey, if I need something to do with WordPress, Matt has the team or the know-how to do that stuff. Networking, it's a great networking piece. Not only are you meeting other people, you have an audience, people connect with you, say, hey, Matt, I heard that you're looking for another guest for the show. I know somebody who might be great for you, and they email you and let you know who that is. It's a massively valuable networking piece for your business. And the most selfish reason is you get to learn a lot. If you're somebody like me who's super curious and you go into situations where you're talking to people who are, way beyond your pay grade or have way better experiences in another field than you, this is a great way to sort of learn these things and get some inside knowledge on stuff that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to. Number 2, it's an intimate connection with an audience. It's probably the most intimate connection with an audience, short of maybe monthly meetups with an audience, with your customers or an audience, that kind of thing. Again, I've talked about this before. People are listening to you. They're running, they're driving, they're doing the dishes, whatever it might be. It is a super connected way to reach your customers or your audience. And they're usually the most passionate. They're the ones that are sharing everything. They're the ones that are communicating with you. All this awesome feedback stuff that happens with podcasting. Number 3, and maybe ultimately the most important technical reason to do a podcast, is it's amazing cornerstone content. So if you just picture doing one hour episode, even 30 minutes of audio or video, that one piece of content can be broken up into many aspects of your content marketing plan, right? So many people say they don't have time to do blogging. They say, I certainly don't have time to do podcasting. They think of it all of this super technical stuff, and it can be depending on what you're doing. But if you take some time and plan it out properly, you could take one show, 1 hour a month, do one episode a month, and then break that up into 2 to 3 blog posts, 2 to 3 emails, a whole bunch of Instagram posts and Facebook posts and Twitter tweets, plenty of stuff that you can do off of one episode so that the thinking doesn't have to be as sort of robust or as weighed down in terms of I'm running a business and now I have to create content. Oh God, how do I do this? Think about just doing 12 shows a year, right? 12 hours for the year, pretty manageable. And then you break that down throughout the month. Let's dissect that third one just a little bit further with some more super actionable advice when you want to go and start a podcast. You take that one audio clip, I mentioned this before, you turn it into one or many blog posts. So you create 4 blog posts out of the 4 topics that you talked about. That covers you for the entire month. you take those blog posts and you pull out some quotes or some quotable pieces from each blog post. And again, let's say we use that fencing company again as a model. You could take photos of amazing fences from around the world, or fences that you installed, or holes that you dug, and just sort of these really engaging photographs, and put those quotes on top of a photograph. And now you have 4 to 8 Instagram posts a month that can go out. Awesome, right? And you link it all back to the blog post, which contains your podcast. And now people are sort of really engaged with this content and ultimately signing up to your email list. Video and audio clips on Facebook, right? So now you take these little chunks out of your audio episode that you did or video episode that you did, and you upload them to Facebook or even Twitter, where you did these little 15 to 30 second clips of audio that people can simply just really quickly listen to or watch on their phone. Again, linking back to the website, all from that one piece of content that you created at the start of the month. And then you can scoop that up, take all of those links and put them into an email that go out once, twice, 3 times a month. Maybe some insider content, stuff that you talked about on the podcast, maybe after you stop recording, and you tell your audience, look, if you subscribe to the newsletter, there will be a little private audio clip that goes into the newsletter that doesn't go out to the rest of the world, or this information or content that is otherwise private or VIP only. And that's why you want to subscribe to the email list. Again, creating that full content marketing circle. Everybody's coming back to your website. Everybody's signing up to the newsletter. And then eventually you get to sell them on a product or service that you offer. So how much does podcasting cost to start? How often do I have to publish? Does it have an ROI? Just real quickly, just to reaffirm the reason why I'm doing this video, is I created a book called thepodcastbook.com. You can download that there. Small fee to learn all of this stuff that I'm talking about today in a nice condensed PDF format, question and answer style. But we're going to dive into some of those answers right here. How much does it cost to start a podcast? Ultimately, it's free. If you have a phone, if you have an iPad like this, you can just simply hit record and upload it to, let's say, a website like SoundCloud, right? But again, you want to start to up your game a little bit. You can spend a little bit of money on a better microphone. This one in this video, for example, quite expensive, but it gets the job done, really well. There are other podcast microphones that we recommend over on the podcastbook.com, like the Blue Yeti. It's $100. It's USB, plugs into your laptop, Windows or Mac, doesn't matter, and you can go ahead and start recording that stuff. You can use a program like Adobe Audition. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, or the free stuff, GarageBand if you're on Mac, Audacity if you're on Windows, both free, and both will record your stuff fairly easily. Where does the audio file go once you're done? Well, the real technical thing is you really want to start in iTunes when you're really ready to commit to this stuff. But if you want to just dabble in it right now and sort of get your feet wet, I would start with SoundCloud.com. You can set up a free account there and upload your audio files, share them on social media, on your blog posts or whatever. It's quite easy to use. It's like uploading a video to YouTube. There's not much fuss to it. And people can subscribe and listen and comment and all that fun stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to take the time to invest to go into iTunes. It doesn't cost you anything to be in there aside from time and commitment. That's the real cost factor in a lot of this stuff. How often do you publish? Totally up to you. Figure out what kind of show you want to start. Daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. Break it up into seasons. Keep doing a recurring weekly or daily thing. Totally up to you on where you want to go with the show. And I'll leave that up to you on how to decide that. A lot of this stuff, again, comes from experience, time, and that commitment that you want to put forward. They say that once you get to 15 episodes that, you're really starting to get it. Most podcasts drop out between 15 and 30 episodes. And once you get beyond that, usually the trend is you're going to stick with it. It's a lot of work depending on, what kind of content you're putting out and how much effort you're putting on behind promoting it and getting people to sign up to your email list. At the end of the day, does it have an ROI? For me, it certainly does. It gets me through the door at a lot of places, puts me as sort of a thought leader. Again, hate that word, in my particular field of WordPress as somebody who does a podcast. But it has actually netted me over 6 figures of business in my digital agency for the last 3-ish years that I've been doing a podcast. And I don't even really monetize it heavily, or I really don't push for a sale as much as I could. I really do it because I enjoy doing it, and I really enjoy sort of the networking and connection factor that I get from it, and the experience and knowledge that I get from just talking to so many people every month. So it's great at that in that regard. I didn't really want to spend too much time on the technical stuff as I did on the sort of business side of things, the advantages that a podcast has, and sort of some of the thinking that a podcast can do for your business, organization, nonprofit, whatever it might be. So I really hope you enjoy this video, this presentation. Different format for this YouTube channel. I do realize that. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, go ahead and subscribe. It's plugintut.com, youtube.com/plugintut. If you like videos like this, thumbs up. If you love content like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next video.